G'day, Vin Diesel here from the Byron Bay Observatory. There comes a time in every astrophotographer's life, usually when it's cloudy or you're just online buying things to fill up the void in your soul, where you decide that you want an all-sky camera. Now, all-sky cameras exist in this strange product space where they're not really a product. There's a few off-the-shelf ones you can buy, but they're just super expensive. Like, you're paying the astronomy tax on that one, just like the wedding tax. Everything is super expensive. And it shouldn't be, because for what they are, a camera, an acrylic dome, a housing, it's not that complicated. But when you get into some of the nitty-gritty features of the enclosure, it can get a little bit complicated. So it's a little bit of work, but it's not crazy work. Now, some people are good at that kind of handyman men shed stuff, but not me. I run the risk of killing myself in an electrical incident. Some people are good at cutting and making and wiring electricity and all of that sort of stuff. Not me. I'm pretty good with the software side of things. I'll spin up that Raspberry Pi and install the Linux and the software. I can do all that sort of stuff, but the actual enclosure and making things neat and tidy, I'm terrible at that. Look at this piece of shit. What an abomination. Anna looked at this with disgust and walked away slowly when I tried to show her what I'd achieved. But I did hack it together enough to make it work. So I want to show you some of the features of the Allsky INDI project. Now, I chose Allsky INDI because it supports basically all the cameras. There's the Allsky project, which is similar, but only supports early version cameras, and I think only ZWO. But if you want to use QHY stuff like I do, Allsky INDI is a good option. Now, you don't have to make your Allsky camera out of poo pipes, toilet pipes like I did. I just went to Bunnings and grabbed some stuff that I thought would tie together really well, and it does. It all screws together nicely. But you can make yours out of whatever you want. You can make it look much nicer. The poo pipe's working for me though. My name is Dylan O'Donnell, and you're watching Star Stuff. Now, when I went to build my Allsky camera, I just had stuff lying around. But if you do want to buy a planetary camera and a wide-angle lens for this, check out the show sponsor, High Point Scientific. They have free shipping on orders over $50 to all the lower 48 states in America, but they do have international shipping as well. And they now have 2 locations on the East Coast and the West Coast. So if you are in America, you're going to get your stuff pretty quickly. They are the astrophotography gear experts without any special commissions to push any particular brand, so give them a shout. Thanks to High Point Scientific for sponsoring this video. So you can see here I'm using the QHY 462C color camera. It's not a square sensor. A square sensor would be better for Allsky generally. And I just found this bit of poo pipe, which I just drilled into to make a hole, and then used this 1.25 inch mount just to hold in the camera. And that seemed to work pretty well. Now, installing Linux on the Raspberry Pi was easy. That didn't take long at all. But actually installing the Allsky INDI project took forever. It took a really long time. Your mileage may vary if you have a faster computer or a faster Pi, maybe a Pi 5, but the Pi 4 did the trick just fine. Now, I threw it all together with a separate hard drive. I used an SSD drive with hundreds of gigabytes spare because I figured that this is going to collect a lot of data over time. I connected this all together and strung it up for testing outside just to make sure it would be waterproof enough and also just work in general. And when you do install it, you do have to kind of rotate and focus the lens into the correct position. And then when you go into configuration, make sure that you get that nice north, south, east and west, so everything lines up nicely in the software. Well, even though my test worked, I was a bit worried about the heat being generated by this whole setup. And in fact, when I measured it, the Raspberry Pi was clocking in at 80 degrees, which is kind of insane. So my plan here is to install this little heatsink on the CPU and a little fan there as well. And then maybe also add these tiny little extractor fans, which should also run just off the Raspberry Pi power. Again, I'm trying to avoid having to install more power. I'd rather it all just ran from the Raspberry Pi, and I think that's enough because I've got these little holes in here, and if I put a fan over the holes, it should just pull air through and at least maybe shave off a couple of degrees there. So that's the plan anyway. Had this massive CCTV dome, this acrylic dome, which is what prompted me to start this whole project. It's just been sitting under my desk for years without me finishing it. Now that I have some time, I think this one's a bit better though. This was like $4 off Amazon, this little one. I got a local machine shop to help me drill out this morning for a 6-pack of beers. So thank you, Adam, down at Baader Engineering. And I think that's going to work nicely. What I like about this is it has like a little lip that goes outside. So any rain falling on here is going to drip out and over, and none of it's going to get into the electronics, which is great. Alright, so this is what the Allsky INDI application looks like. It is a web server that runs on the Raspberry Pi, and then you connect to it with your IP address, and you can set a password if you need to as well. And in here, it's just telling me it shut down abnormally last time because I unplugged it. In the config, you're going to want to set up a bunch of stuff, and there are so many options. You have the camera settings here, and you can see that it supports because it's using the INDI protocol instead of ASCOM, it supports a whole range of different cameras. Most cameras these days, most modern cameras have INDI support built in, so they're just going to work. I did have some trouble getting the driver to work for the QHY. There was a bit of codey stuff I had to do to get that working, but that wasn't too bad. Now it's got this latest view. Now I'm in my room right now, and it will refresh every 15 seconds or so. You can change the loop speed, and in fact if we go to loop, it will give you a little loop of the last 4 hours. So you can see it's been out in the rain here. Yeah, not the most impressive loop in the world, but we can go to media and go back in time to when I could see stars. So this is especially cool if you want to go back in time. Now this also works for time lapses. So we can go back in time and generate a time lapse. And this is also stuff it's generated automatically off its own bat. This was the first night I saw stars, so I increased the exposure and fiddled around with the SCNR. There's a bit of green bias still in this, but that was first light. And there you go, I've adjusted the exposure, got some clouds there. I do need to run the dark frames again because there is a bit of noise in here. And there's a command that you run on the command line to generate those dark frames just by covering up the camera, and then that will make this image a lot cleaner as well. But I was so happy to see stars, and this is exactly how I want it to work. I've got north, south, east and west marked on the view here. You can also see icons for the sun and the moon traveling around the time lapse to show you where they are in frame. And in fact the moon's about to rise up here. There's the moon. We've got satellite information, we've got planetary information, sun and moon information, we've got stars, we've got aurora indexing. It's just really cool. Now once you get your view aligned and you north, south, east and west is correct, and you set your image circle so it has the right distortion parameters in the config, which you marry up with the type of lens you have and how wide it is and the camera that you have, you can overlay the stars and some information, some planets, and that perfectly syncs up with the view that you're getting. So that's a nice little feature. And the developer has made it really easy to adjust the image parameters as well. So you can change the maximum gain, you can change the ADU targets, you can change the SCNR, you can change the stretching functions. There's a whole bunch of parameters here which I'm still dialing in on the starry nights. There's meteor detection, there's star detection, and you can configure the overlay the way you want. I've configured the overlay the way I want based on what's in there, and I've added my logo to the images that it produces. I've changed the font. You have your time-lapse parameters here. Location parameters are important for getting that virtual view looking well, and the sun and moon tracking and all of that sort of thing. You can push the files off-site if you want to. Just be careful with pushing files off-site. It will use up bandwidth, and if you're on a host, a small shared host, it will use up your quota as well. But if you've got your own server, you run up your own AWS or Azure or something, maybe you've got a bunch of space. You have MQTT publishing, you have YouTube publishing as well if you want to. Other external storages. You can add sensors to your Allsky device, and you have devices, and you can plug into the GPIO ports on the Raspberry Pi and add a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And it looks like it has a tab for satellite tracking as well. I haven't explored that at all. But I am very pleased with what it's doing by itself, even out of the box. Just setting it up and putting in the basic parameters, it's started a whole bunch of automatic time lapses, and I haven't even seen this. This is the first time I'm seeing this. It's done all of this by itself. So I'm really happy really happy with the final form. I've got it right here, ready to go. Minimal cables, just Ethernet and power. I'm going to put this back outside when it's clear, and now my observatory is doing more observing and automatically without me, so that if there is a fireball in the sky, I can rewind and go back through that hard drive of data and get a video of it. How much did this all cost me? I don't think I spent too much at all. I think the biggest cost was the Raspberry Pi. I had the camera lying around anyway. It's a QHY 462C. This would also work well with a 715C as well, a color camera. But even mono would work great too. I think color's good for an Allsky camera though. And so far I've got away without having an additional power. Most people will add like a dew heater. I have been looking at like a dew heater module like this, which would be useful. And there are going to be times when it gets rained on, but depending on how complicated you want to make things, I'm going to try without for a little while. Maybe try with some hydrophobic solution, see if that helps, or maybe just dry it off now and then. But yeah, that's the Allsky INDI project. Very impressed with that project. I believe the author is a guy called Andrew Morris, so shout out to Andrew for excellent work. It's been pretty rainy here, so this is just something to do while I wait for those proper clear skies. I'm still Jupiter monitoring, and I'm still going through chemo at the moment. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for following along on my journey. And I hope your astrophotography journey is going well. My name is Dylan O'Donnell, and you've been watching Star Stuff. And remember, everything is meaningless. We're all going to die.